Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another episode of the Awaken Soul Podcast. I'm your host, CEO Haize, and we have a very special guest on this week's episode of the podcast. But before we get into that, make sure you're following the podcast. That's at Awaken Soul Pod or at the Awaken Soul Pod, just depending on where you're looking for us at. You can also follow me personally if you choose to at CEO Haize, at CEO Haize. And on this week's episode, we have Miss Kimville from the Black Free Thinkers in the building, and we discuss everything from the coronavirus to the crab in the bucket mentality, how we go about delivering our content and teaching people and really accepting being in a place with what we do with our platforms of really trying to bring an education to people. We talk about politics. We talk about a little bit of everything. This is the episode that you want to listen to if you want to just challenge your own thinking and, more importantly, just learn some things. So make sure you check that out. But before we get into all that, you know what we got to do. We got to go into my dark and twisted, crazy ass mind. So let's go ahead and do that. We're going to get into the In the Mind of Haize segment right after this. All right, so we're in my crazy mind. And as you guys pretty much know, the coronavirus thing, the scare, everything, it's taken over every aspect of what's going on in this country. We've seen the financial aspect. If you guys watch the stock market, the S&P 500 at one point was down huge, and that is a representation of the top 500 companies in the country. And so that being down is a huge sign of things going on. We've gotten every major sport has been affected by this. Basketball has completely stopped their season. Baseball's canceled spring training. Football, still waiting to see how that's going to go. Soccer, everything. South by Southwest was canceled. Films are being canceled left and right. And so it's easy to really get scared in a time like this, right? And so this whole coronavirus thing, the issue that I have had with it is the way that the media has been delivering it. And if you guys are listening to the full episode of the Awaken Soul Podcast, you'll actually get me and Kimville talking about it there. So make sure you go and click that link in the description and listen to the full episode. But the media, and this is one of the things of why it's important to really kind of pay attention and have more than just one media outlet, because they are really and truly honestly using the media to scare people, I think, at this point. And I don't want to take anything away from it. Like, this is serious, and yes, health is important, and like schools being shut down and all of that are all safety measures. But if you look at the way that this coronavirus thing was communicated in the media up until it got to the United States, it really flipped. It was used as something to they talked more about deaths than the fact of how many people were surviving coronavirus. And then, yes, now it's to the point where I understand it's in this country now. We want to try to quarantine it the best we can. Here in Ohio, they canceled like basically all dine-in restaurants. And even that was communicated initially. The way that the media communicated it was that there was going to be a shutdown of all restaurants Sunday, 9 p.m., and they were going to be closed indefinitely. Well, digging a little deeper and reading a little more, you'll find that it's just the dine-in portion. You can still order. DoorDash is still available. You can go and pick up your food. They're just trying to cut down on the congregation of people and hopefully stop the spread of this virus. We're preparing for like a whole shutdown of the country. And if you don't think that that's a possibility, I need you guys to wake up. I'm not saying that it's going to happen for sure, but I'm saying that it is very much a possibility. When you look at how many deaths we've even had in this country, I believe at last I checked, we're up to almost 70 deaths, untold amount of cases of people having this virus. And as that continues to grow, it's going to get worse before it gets better. And we have to keep keep ourselves safe. Wash your hands. I know that seems like a very simple thing to say, but it's true. You need to be washing your hands. You need to be staying away from people that cough. You know, I even read something today. I think it's like Google has suggestions on how to stay safe during this, and one of those suggestions was don't get closer than 3 feet to somebody. Like, just imagine that. Imagine how you have to live your life to make sure that you don't get any closer than 3 feet to people. And in a lot of cases, they're suggesting you stay even further than that during this scare. There's a chance that schools may be canceled for the rest of the school year. And when you look at the economic and the cultural, the social aspects that the effects of this are having, it's going to take us a while to recover from this. There's going to be people who are still afraid even after the media or whatever says that we're no longer at high risk. And then like with the economics of it, like just the theater chains and movie theaters and businesses now, there are going to be, unfortunately, a lot of small businesses, mom and pop restaurants, mom and pop just stores that are very high risk of closing down because of what's going on. It's going to take, as a society, this is going, as a world, like as just a population. Yeah, it's easy to look at just the United States, but look at like a country like Italy, where I grew up at, and how they've been affected by it. They are basically on a complete shutdown. When you look at those type of things, it's going to be a very long time before we completely over this coronavirus thing. If we ever do get completely over it, there's a chance that we may not. So much is up in air right now. All the craziness and the worries that are going on, like toilet paper being out of stock, stores being out of stock in general, like for those that are affected by that, some of it, it's sensationalizing. Some of the stores that you've seen pictures of it being empty, literally they're restocked like an hour or two later. But I don't want to take away from the fact that in a lot of areas, this is very real, that they just can't get certain things. And it's just a scary time. And, I wanted to avoid talking about it initially when I was preparing for this episode, but as things have continued to happen and continue to go down, it's like, this is going to completely change the way that we live, and not just in the short term, in the long term. I think that may just be me worrying too much, but I mean, it remains to be seen. I really do think that this is going to affect our country for a very, very long time. And then when you look at like I said, the social aspect, there are going to be some people, like if you were a germaphobe before, imagine now. People who are just afraid to leave their house because they don't want to get sick. It's real. I mean, I want to say, as much as I'm talking about it, like prayers and thoughts out to everyone and everyone's family, especially our older generations who are at the most high risk for this, for this to be fatal to them. Prayers out to them. Make sure that you're talking and staying in touch with your loved ones, especially if the elderly. Like, we have to, try to lift each other up and ourselves up through this as much as we can. And so the response to this has gotten a lot of backlash. There are some people who think that we're doing too much. There's some people that think that we aren't doing enough. And as this continues, and as we get closer to a potential lockdown, like NYC is as a potential to be completely shut down and quarantined, and at Pennsylvania as well, here in Ohio, like what some of these cities and states will do to protect their citizens, we don't really know how far they're willing to go. But the thing is that you would think that because of this, there's a chance of that. There's a chance of that. But another aspect that I want to talk about, and I know it's still on the coronavirus thing, is the Rudy Gobert thing. Like, he was the first, other than like Tom Hanks, prayers out to Tom Hanks as well, who was like the first celebrity that we saw impacted by this. But Rudy Gobert, really the first athlete, and we were all wondering like what the NBA is going to do. There were first plans to play in like empty arenas without fans, but the moment that one NBA player got it, that just opened up the door for so many other NBA players to have it. Because when you look at like the teammates and referees and all this, and there's actually a child who got an autograph from Rudy Gobert who has now been diagnosed with coronavirus. So, and there's a lot of backlash coming down on him. People are saying he's an idiot because he did the whole thing of before he realized he had it, he touched every mic. And yeah, it was childish, but at the same time, a lot of people didn't take this seriously. And it's stupid, and I think retroactively, of course, we can look at him and have a big issue with him, but that goes back to like the way that things were communicated. And there's a time where people really didn't fear it. But the backlash coming down on him is something that's going to now follow him for the rest of his career. And he's since been very apologetic for it. One of his teammates was actually diagnosed with it as well. And it's just one of those things. It sucks and it's scary. And, now you understand why they shut down the NBA. There are people who are upset about it at first. And, we got to let this pass. We got to try to get through this the best way we can. And quarantine is the best thing right now. And then for everyone who's like looking at like so many TV productions and movies being shut down as well, we talked about that on the Film Frequency, so make sure you go and check out the Film Frequency if you want to talk about like how that and the theater structure is going to be affected by this. Way bad slip of the tongue there, but we just have to continue it. And I mean that's really the only thing that I have for this In the Mind of Haize exclusive YouTube segment for this week, because this actually won't be on the podcast because me and Kimberly Ville really went in depth. I think we recorded about an hour and a half, so there's not going to be an In the Mind of Haize segment on the podcast version of this. So make sure you go and check out the podcast version. This is just for my YouTube viewers. But yeah, that's just kind of my thoughts and where they are right now. I wanted to talk also about the Harvey Weinstein thing and the fact that he got a 23-year sentence. So I'm going to touch on that briefly before we go. And I know that's jumping from the coronavirus thing, but the thing that I really want to point out to this, for all the people who like the Bill Cosby, not supporters, but the people who are kind of apologetic and always when Bill Cosby would come up will bring up, well, what's going to happen to Harvey Weinstein? Why hasn't he been charged? He got a way harsher sentence than Bill Cosby, at least in my opinion. And there's, his lawyer said he's not going to survive this. Now, I do want to point out that with good behavior, Harvey Weinstein, they could do something to where he gets out in like 5 years or something like that. But the thing is that, with him trying to pull the whole, now he needs a walker and the cripple thing, I'm glad that because for me, it was frustrating to me too. I thought he may get sympathy for that. So seeing this sentence for me is major and it's huge, and I'm glad that it came down. But the thing that we are celebrating, like, I don't want to focus too much on this, and I feel like sometimes not just the media, but also us as watchers of it will get caught up in this and feel like this is a victory. The thing is that Hollywood has always been a dark place. It's always been one of the things like this. Things like this haven't always had the light shined on it. So now that this does, we need to watch out, because there's always going to be another Harvey Weinstein. When you look at like now retroactively, like some of the jokes that people were making and the parody of Harvey Weinstein and like Entourage, I believe it was Entourage and stuff like that, where they had like creep characters that were Seth Rogen even made jokes about Harvey Weinstein and stuff out in public. But the outcry was kind of always there, and nothing was really done about it up until the Me Too movement. In this point, we got to make sure that we now don't rest and keep our eyes out for things like this, and keep it where we know that we let the women know that they can speak out and that there are actually going to be actions done for it, and it's not just going to be swept under the rug. Otherwise, we're going to be looking at another Harvey Weinstein in another 10 to 15 years. So that's something that I wanted to speak on as well on this. Throw him under the jail for all I care. Him, Bill Cosby, R. Kelly, throw all the motherfuckers away. I'm glad that it's now coming to a head, and we need to keep this moving and keep the focus on that as well. But that's it. That's all that I have on my mind this week. Let me know how you feel about it. Like I said, make sure you check out the full episode of The Awakened Soul, the podcast version. The link will be down in the description. I'm your host, CEO Haize, and I'm out. Peace.